What's up, everyone? Mark Lobliner, TigerFitness.com. Just the tips. Just the business tips. Today, I'm going to talk about top line versus bottom line. A lot of people, when evaluating and when looking at the success of a company, look at the overall sales number. What we're going to look at today is EBITDA and the bottom line. The bottom line would be how much money you actually bring home. I believe EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Okay? Basically, it's at the end of the day how much money's left over after all your expenses are said and done, and you bring in your sales and your revenue. Now, the two companies we're going to look at today are Isatori and Musclepharm. Now, Musclepharm, their Q4 revenues were off 13%. Their net loss widens fourfold, and they only have $1 million of cash on hand. You might be thinking $1 million is a lot of money, not for a company this size. They had a negative 16.11 EBITDA. Negative 16.11 EBITDA. Put that in perspective. That's not good. Not good at all. So let me read this. This is off of seekingalpha.com. No, that's not a site that I own. This was an ugly quarter for the supposed high flyer. Revenue growth was negative, inventory backed up, and expenses skyrocketed. With only $1 million in the bank, the company won't be able to make payroll for long. Profitability remains elusive. Best case for gross margin of 33% for this year won't be enough to make money. Gross margin for 2014 was 31.6% versus 29.9% the year before, a modest increase considering the aggressive top line growth. That's the thing. They have net revenues. I believe that's $32.7 million. Okay, but they're losing money. They're losing money. So what it means is that they're spending more money to make money. They're essentially spending $20 to make $1. That's not the way that I choose or businesses should be run. In my opinion, obviously they're in a different school of thought. This could be right along their plan. But for an analyst like this site to say that they're not going to be paying payroll, I'm friends with Corey. I love them. This is simply me looking at one of the only publicly traded companies in the industry. Not a knock at Musclepharm. I like them. We sell them at TigerFitness.com. Please buy more of their product to help them get out of debt. The next one is Isatori Global Technologies, maker of BioGrow. They lost $828,000 EBITDA last year. They're a $10 million company. Looking at the iFit stock, which is their stock, they had a net income of negative $958,64,000. EBITDA of negative $828,06K. And essentially they're a $10.67 million company, which, by the way, isn't a small company at all. $10.67 million is a very, very nice company. Now, I point these out because you look at these companies, they're all over the place. You look at Musclepharm and Costco. You look at BioGrow everywhere. And then you look at a company like MTS or like AMSO Alpha or like HPN or like Core, and we're not in nearly the locations they are. But we are not publicly traded. I do not like, and I will never, I've been asked if we're going to go public. I have no plans of ever taking a company public. I like to own my shit. I like to have the handles. I don't like a board telling me what to do. I also like to be, a board can tell you yes or no. They ultimately have the say on what goes on. I'm not a big fan of an IPO. I'm not a big fan of going public. If I do anything, it's going to be sell the company. That's in my opinion how I want to run it. It does offer you tons of funding, but something to be said about grinding and working and remaining profitable and operating on cash in hand where you can make payroll organically. Now, looking at this, operating as a company that's privately traded, and you don't know how much our company is worth, okay? I understand that. But I will say those companies mentioned, the HPNs, the Cores, those are privately traded companies that are remaining profitable. What is the difference between a publicly traded company and one not? There's something said about when you're privately traded. Private, not privately traded. I keep saying that and I apologize. The difference between private and public is public, you have access to money. Okay, if you want to run an advertising campaign that you can't afford, you can go to the magic bucket where there's some money to work with. You can also spoil yourself. I'll tell you what, I've traveled with Sean, I've traveled with Doug. We make a joke, I'll just expense it. What happens when Doug, me, and Sean expense something? It comes out of our budget, comes out of our paycheck. Yet when somebody with a public company expenses something, it comes from this magical pot of money. It's like operating a household. You know you make $100,000 a year. If you spend over $100,000, you're going to have your car taken from you. You're going to have your house foreclosed on because you overspent. You didn't budget. Running a company that's a private company is like budgeting for your house. You can't overextend creditors or you get your shit taken away. Okay. So by operating within your means, let's say if I am with a public company and I want to run a big ad campaign, I go to the board, I present my case, and magically money appears and I can afford it. If it doesn't have a return on investment, we're in the negative. If Doug, Sean, or myself wanted to run an ad campaign, we'd have to pull out of our pot. We'd have to have that cash on hand, or we'd have to be able to pay it in the credit terms that are stated. Now, by running that, we're taking a risk, but we can afford it. You see what I'm saying? So looking at this, I understand that 90% of all businesses fail, 70 to 90%, and a lot of those are private companies. However, being a public company affords itself a lot of risks. And one is that you're not operating within the realms of reality. There are a lot of successful companies that come, spend a lot of money, and basically buy themselves shelf space and market share. But what we're seeing here, hopefully, I hope these companies survive, is companies operating beyond their means and running a net loss, a very scary net loss. I'm not talking about just remaining barely profitable so you don't have to pay as many taxes and cooking the books that way. I'm talking about a company that literally is going to worry about making their payroll while signing people like Tiger Woods. Would Doug, me, or Sean sign Tiger Woods? Absolutely not. Why? Because we'd go out of business. It's a risk, but how many cartons or how many jugs of Combat is Tiger Woods possibly selling from Musclepharm? It got them a little PR. They're in Costco. I understand. You also got to realize when you sell to someone like Costco, I'm assuming they're going to be on lower margins if they sold to someone like TigerFitness.com. So their margins are less. They have to move more. Sometimes it's better to move less product for more margin than more product for less margin. It is what it is. Okay, I'd rather make $1 million on $10 million in sales than make $1 million on $100 million in sales. Because the cost to do $100 million in sales is a lot more than the cost to do $10 million in sales. Top line versus bottom line. The opinion of the machine is unless you're trying to sell, and even if you are, top line means fuck all. I'm all about the bottom line. And the bottom line is that MTS Nutrition is taking the fuck over. And that's not a game.